February the 3rd, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful. And let's start with our daily Fury reports. I still need to come up with a clever name for this segment, but we need a clever name, we need like a good song, and we need like a good image. All right, let's see. Trump made a deal that brought 21 Dems to his side and stopped a rebellion among Republicans, ending the shutdown. Really? So, admittedly, I'm kind of out of the news cycle today. Been incredibly busy with just logistical things. I hadn't heard that the ended the shutdown. That's awesome to hear. Let's see. The funding bill is a compromise between the Senate Dems and the White House and will fund 97% of the government through the end of the fiscal 2026. Let's see. It hit his desk today and he signed it. Fantastic. The agreement came after Thune threatened a talking filibuster that would have tied up the floor time indefinitely and paralyzed the Senate for months. Good Lord. DHS issued body cameras to federal agents in Minneapolis. Past time they did that. The Indian community, as in India migrants, took credit for the Dem win in Texas. The HB1 scandal is big in Texas, and we are seeing the results of it as counties and districts that were traditionally red vote blue. Thank you, Abbott. Texans will remember that March 2nd at the ballot box. Let's see, the Abraham Lincoln crew shot down a drone that approached it threateningly, and then also stopped Iranians from stopping a U.S. merchant in the Straits who was lawfully conducting business there. So far, they are acting defensively, not aggressively. Good for them. Trump has been ordered by a judge, not even from this country, what? To extend the protections for migrants from Haiti. Not only is this illegal, it is beyond this judge's authority to do this. However, instead of standing up for our Constitution and the rights of our government, Trump appealed to another court. Trump is not doing us any favors by appearing weak on the home front. Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Why is he doing that? I don't know, maybe to have a paper trail of winning. Maybe he's overly confident in, I don't know, it just appears weak. Let's see, they can claim he is trying to do things legally all they want, but what he is doing is bowing to the illegal moves of liberals. Indeed. Trump says Republicans should take over the voting and nationalize U.S. elections. Maybe they should. But like many other things they should do, such as enforcing our laws and pushing the Insurrection Act, they won't. See, y'all do realize we can interact with the posts on the homepage, right? It is like a community there where we can talk with Watchful. Yes. You can also ask questions there and have him address you on the next show. Just respond to his posts there. Oh, yeah. The community page of the YouTube. Yeah, we could use that as a community. I think that's how YouTube designed it. I might even have some options I can turn on there to allow people to do more posting. Let's see. And yes, this is Watchful's channel. Without him, it wouldn't exist. I appreciate that. I think of it as God's channel. I made the Two Witnesses live at his direction. I believe I was inspired one day how cool it would be knowing that the Two Witnesses we're about to see them, and somebody should do a channel dedicated to echoing their prophecy. I think I just hold the keys to keep the riffraff from ruining it. So. But this is all done for God. I don't really look at anything as the ownership. Matter of fact, I don't even like showing my face. If I could do this faceless, I totally would. I started doing it faceless. Then I think it was Chris that talked me into showing my face because we were playing around with different formats. we tried doing the like the Tim Pool interview format where we would do segments. We failed miserable at sticking to the segments, and then it just kind of devolved into what it was, and then now here we are today, going back to segments again. I like the way we do segments now, though. I think the segments now, and putting time limits where they need to be in order to try and rein in the time, it's working well. Let's see. We do really want to hear what you have to say and want your feedback. 100%. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, cool. All right, let us move on to the Daily Torment Reports. Through shadows deep. All right, the Daily Torment Report is where we cover the posts of the two men who are tormenting the most and could very likely be the two witnesses. Whether you agree or not, it is what it is. This is where they seem to be two men who are anointed by God and tormenting the world. I understand it's a difficult pill to swallow if indeed they are the two witnesses, because we all, myself included, had ideas for who the two witnesses would be. Moses and Enoch, Elijah and Enoch, Zerubbabel. I mean, we had Joseph. We all had opinions on how this was going to play out, but that's the end times. It's surprising all of us. Nothing is happening the way anybody guessed it would happen, but I think we all agree that it is happening. So the reason we cover Donald Trump and Elon Musk is because they do truly torment the world, and that is one of the key attributes about the two witnesses. I can imagine that if somebody were to take out either one of these or both of these men, that there would be rejoicing in the street. Can't you? I mean, you can too. You have to be honest about that. Trump derangement syndrome is very real, and that's one of the attributes of the two witnesses. If it were two men, I'm all for two men breathing fire and burning people with fire from their mouth. That would be fantastic to see, because I'm all about God's judgment and justice, and it would just be cool to see somebody with that kind of supernatural capability. But that would be a lot more obvious, and everybody would agree with us that, oh yeah, these are the two witnesses. But the more you think about it, though, is, the Bible uses a lot of figures of speech, especially for something that's been hidden for so long. You got to remember, a lot of these end time events and a lot of the meaning of these things was sealed up and hidden. And part of the way that was sealed up and hidden is that it was obscured through metaphor and figures of speech and, imagery that would not make any sense until the fulfillments. So we're now very clearly in the fulfillment of those things, and it's a matter of trying to figure out, okay, so what did that imagery represent? And the fire from the mouth seems to be like speaking truth. I like to say mean tweets, because that's fun. And both Donald Trump and Elon Musk are very good at being brash in the way they respond to things in such a way that says that you could argue that it is fire from the mouth. All right, let us put, I don't know how long we've got. We'll give him 30 minutes to go through Trump's posts and see if we actually cover that amount of time. I don't think we will. He tends to be on the lower end of posting these days. We'll see where it goes, though. All right, so 11 minutes ago, he posted, Jeb Bush heaps praise on Trump's unprecedented support for Iranians 10 years after heated primary, from Fox News. All right. What is this? We have the beautiful building will be, when complete, the much-anticipated White House Ballroom, the greatest of its kind ever built. It is a rendering from the Treasury Building directly across the street, and replaces the very small, dilapidated, and rebuilt many times East Wing with a magnificent new East Wing, consisting of a glorious ballroom that has been asked for by presidents for over 150 years. Being an identical height and scale, it is totally in keeping with our historic White House. This is the first rendering shown to the public. If you notice, the north wall is a replica of the north facade of the White House, shown at the right-hand side of the picture. This space will serve our country well for hopefully centuries into the future. President Donald J. Trump. It looks like a museum. No, it's beautiful. Oh, okay, I see. So you've got like this, you got the White House over here, and you've got like this grand entrance with these massive pillars. Looks Roman. Like Roman pillars. All right. That's interesting. Looking good. All right. A retro. Oh, no, this is an ad. I'm not going to read the ads. Let's see. This was posted 4 hours ago. It says from February 2nd, 2026. Who's this from? Okay. No idea who it's from, but we'll read it. Dear President Trump, it was great seeing you last week during our visit to the White House. I appreciate all the hospitality your team has extended us. Thank you for all that you and your administration are doing to put America first, to protect our borders, and return investment to our great country. It's amazing what you have accomplished during your first year back in office. The announcement of the Freedom 250 Grand Prix was a big day for our country and for IndyCar. It will certainly be a great celebration and will bring incredible economic value to Washington, D.C. Thank you for your support in making this happen. Thank you again for your continued leadership. I am proud to support you and your administration. I look forward to seeing you again soon. All the bests. Roger Penske. All right. Where does he have time for all this stuff? I mean, like, he's got so many irons in the fire. It's unbelievable. Sleazebag influencer. See what I mean? Fire from the mouth. Sleazebag influencer and lawyer Leonard Leo, who has legal issues of his own, goes around telling everyone how he has the legal system rigged. I hope that's not true, and if it is, it should be thoroughly looked into. Leonard has a very big and very dangerous mouth. I don't like to read these ones because it makes me want to go read the articles. But it's problematic reading the articles. Let's see. New Trump confirms talks with Cuba. Hopefully he will strike a deal. Let's see. Trump weighs diplomacy with Iran and rising tensions. U.S. forces strikes ISIS Somalia leader in Somalia caves, February 2025. Was Ilhan Omar there to protect her corrupt homeland? I don't know. Why hasn't the fake news, New York Times, adjusted its phony article on the corruption of antisemitism, which has taken place at Harvard? They never call for facts or fact checks because the Times is a corrupt, unprincipled, and pathetic vehicle of the left. They wrote only negatively about me in the last election, and I won it in a landslide. To anyone who knows, they have zero credibility, a rag at the lowest level. I look forward to watching their rapidly falling circulation force them to finally close their doors. That would be great news for America. And then 19 hours ago, the failing New York Times story was completely wrong concerning Harvard University. I hereby demand that the morons that run into the ground the Times change their story immediately. See the truth below. Also, just like they're incorrectly called by the Times election results, where they got it all wrong. My poll numbers are great in New York. My poll numbers are great. The New York Times coverage of me is so purposely wrong. We will soon see how I do in my lawsuit against these fraudsters. Fake news. All right, raise your hand if you completely stop believing the mainstream media. Yeah. I don't know. Anybody who's dumb enough to believe the mainstream media needs to get their brain checked out. Where's this post he said to refer to? I don't see it. See the truth below. The truth below looks like memes, sir. Cry all you want. He's doing exactly what I hired him for. Amen. Yes, indeedy. Let's see, 20 hours ago. Strongly anti-Semitic Harvard University. Okay, apparently this is a theme. Strongly anti-Semitic Harvard University has been feeding a lot of nonsense to the failing New York Times. Harvard has been, for a long time, behaving very badly. They wanted to do a convoluted job training concept, but it was turned down in that it was wholly inadequate and would not have been, in our opinion, successful. It was merely a way of Harvard getting out of a large cash settlement of more than $500 million, a number that should be much higher for the serious and heinous illegalities that they have committed. This should be criminal, not civil event, and Harvard will have to live with the consequences of their wrongdoings. In any event, this case will continue until justice is served. Dr. Alan Garber, the president of Harvard, has done a terrible job of rectifying a very bad situation for his institution and, more importantly, America itself. He was hired after the anti-Semitism charges were brought. I wonder why. We are now seeking $1 billion in damages and want nothing further to do into the future with Harvard University. As the failing New York Times clearly stated, some connected to the university, however, think Harvard has no option but to eventually cut a deal. The administration has repeatedly attempted to cut off research grants, which would be an untenable crisis. Like many major research universities, Harvard relies on federal funding for its financial model. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Harvard's doing bad in many ways. Highest poll numbers I've ever received. Obviously, people like a strong, powerful country with the best ever economy. With the best economy ever. Get the emphasis right. And that's where we left off yesterday. Not too bad. That was only 9 minutes. Could almost read the articles. Let's go see what else he has posted. He likes to post videos on the White House YouTube page. Let's see what we got here. President Trump gaggles at the press conference at Mar-a-Lago on the 1st. President Trump gaggles with press on Air Force One. National School Choice Week, returning education to parents. President Trump is returning education to parents. Cool. All right, let's see what this is.
How you doing, Mr. President?
A big day. One of our great people, Dan, Aaron, they're getting married. And so that's a big day. Very loyal, very fantastic people.
Sir, on Iran, the Supreme Leader today said that a U.S. attack could spark a regional war. Giving you a response to that, sir?
Why wouldn't he say that? Of course you're going to say that, but we have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, a couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
Mr. President, Texas, a Democrat won the special election in an area that you had won by 17 points. What is your reaction to that?
I don't know. I didn't hear about it. Somebody ran where?
In Texas, a special election for legislative
The
seat.
9th state Senate seat.
I'm not involved in that. That's a local Texas race.
Did you endorse the Republican?
You mean I won by 17
You did.
and this person lost? Things like that happen.
Does it worry you about the
Well, you don't know whether or not it's transferable. You know, I'm not on the ballot, so you don't know whether or not it's transferable. But, you know, you put the Democrats in, you'll end up with open borders again. You'll end up with crime all over the place. We have no crime anymore. I mean, think of it. The country has the lowest crime it's had in 125 years in recorded history. The year 1900. That's a long time ago.
Is that true? Is it true that the country as a whole has the lowest crime it's ever had in however many years he stated? We'll have to look that up. I thought it was just in areas where they've gone in and they've been removing illegal immigrants and murderers and rapists and stuff. But that's an interesting statement that the country as a whole has the lowest crime.
So it's very good. No, I don't know anything about it. I didn't know. I mean, I know there's a race going there. And it's too bad. What can I say? I have nothing to do with it. Yeah. Well, Cuba's a failing nation. It has been for a long time. But now it doesn't have Venezuela to prop it up. So we're talking to the people from Cuba, the highest people in Cuba, to see what happens. I want the people that came here that were horribly treated by Cuba to be taken care of, to be able to go back and do what they have to do. They have their family there. They haven't been able to see them in years, many, many years. So I think we're going to make a deal with Cuba.
President, back to Texas.
It's in bad shape. Cuba's in bad shape. Cuba has a humanitarian problem.
Do you have any plans to endorse in that Senate race? Has your mind
Which
changed
Senate
at all?
race?
In Texas, the GOP primary.
I'm giving it very serious thought. My problem is I'm friendly with all of them. Those are the hard ones. I like all of them, all three. But you'll be seeing soon. Okay? They say whoever I endorse wins. That's probably right.
Do you support all federal Border Patrol agents and ICE wearing body cams?
We'll be talking about that in the near future. Okay? But you saw my note that I put out yesterday. That was I think it was pretty conclusive. Look, we stopped crime in our country and the border is the best it's ever been. Thank you very much.
I do believe the border is the best it's ever been. All right, let's see if he said anything good here.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing, Mr. President?
I'm very good. We had a good time at the alfalfa dinner. We did well. I hope we did well, but it was very good. Tremendous people. So what's up?
Sir, could you give us an update on where your thinking is right now with Iran, if you have made a final decision on what you want to do?
I mean, I certainly can't tell you that, but we do have very big, powerful ships heading in that direction, as you know. I can't tell you,
Okay.
but I hope they negotiate something that's acceptable.
Saudi Arabia's defense minister reportedly said that if the U.S. backs off the strike, that will only improve Iran. What's your reaction to that, sir?
Some people think that, some people don't. You could make a negotiated deal that would be satisfactory with no nuclear weapons. They should do that, but I don't know that they will, but they are talking to us. Seriously talking to us. What about it? I did. Well, I met with Jeb Bush. I was on Jeb. I think you mean Jeb. No, I introduced him. Nice. He's a good fellow. And he's been very nice to me the last 6 months. I don't know what happened, but he was very nice. We had a good time.
Mr. President, on your Fed nominee, Kevin Marshall, why are you willing to wait for Senator Tom Tillis to leave the Senate, essentially, until, if you have to, if Senator
For Tillis, I didn't say I wouldn't, but I mean, he's leaving the Senate for a reason, because what he asked for didn't get done. So it's one of those things. I think he may get Democrat votes too. I think he's so good that he'll probably get Democrat votes. He should. He's very good. My choice, my Fed choice, should get Democrat votes.
Do you have a sense of what he's going to do as far as interest rates are concerned?
I hope he's going to lower them. I mean, if you watch him on television, because I watch interviews and statements, I hope he's going to lower them, but he's going to have to do what he wants to do.
Did he tell you? Did he make any commitments?
No commitments. I don't want to do that. I couldn't do that, I guess, if I wanted to. I didn't. I based it on quality. I mean, he's a very high quality person. He should have no trouble getting through.
Mr. President, did you make a comment at the dinner about saying that you would sue?
About what?
About suing Porsche so he does not lower interest
Yes,
rates?
it's a roast. It's a roast. It's a comedy day.
So it's a joke.
And I said, of course, it was all comedy.
And the more serious note, you're suing the IRS. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be on both sides of a lawsuit.
It's very interesting. I have another one.
Suing the
where I
IRS?
virtually won the Mar-a-Lago break-in suit. And, I have to work out some kind of a settlement. I'm supposed to work out a settlement with myself. Because, when the FBI broke in, we sued. Before I was president, I sued. And obviously, it was a very good suit. And I have that one, and I have to work out a settlement.
Have you instructed Pam Bondi on how to handle that at all?
Well, I think what we'll do is do something for charity. We're thinking about doing something for charity, where I'll give money to charity. We can make it a substantial amount. Nobody would care because it's going to go to numerous, very good charities.
Sir, you guys have the truth today about Minneapolis and how you might not see federal authorities intervene. You asked
On what?
the Secretary note not to send in DHS in Democratic states.
No, I let them ask us if they want help. They're always complaining. If you go in, they complain. They complain no matter what. You know, we brought crime to the lowest point in the history of our country, 125 years, 1900. Think of it. Year. Think of that, 1900. Can you imagine? We have the lowest crime in the history of our country, despite the fact that our country was riddled with a lot of bad people from the Biden open border. But we've taken a lot of them out. We're at the lowest point in history. We have the least number of murders in the recorded history of our country. That's incredible. But honestly, the crime-ridden cities are all Democrat-run cities. And if they want help, they have to ask for it. Because if we go in, all they do is complain. But if they want help, they can ask for it, and they're going to need help. Los Angeles is an example. We went in, we solved it. The chief law enforcement officer in Los Angeles said they couldn't have done it without the federal government. A week later, he said they didn't need the federal government. You know, so we don't want that. If they want help, they'll ask, but they have to say please.
I think that's one thing, sir. The Democrats have made three demands. They say they want no roving patrols, they want established rules for use of force, and they want masks off.
Well, we'll talk about it. It's not appropriate yet. We have to let a little time go by, but we'll talk about it. But you know, I got elected for law enforcement, for the border, for the economy, things I've done a great job with. I mean, when you have the lowest crime rate in the history of our country, recorded in 125 years, to be exact. So I fulfill so much. We'll have to talk about that over the next 3 or 4 days.
Mr. President, what did you think of the latest release of Epstein files, and do you think your critics will be satisfied with?
Well, they should be, because it looked like this guy Wolf, who's a writer, was conspiring with Epstein to do harm to me. And I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping, you know, the radical left. That Wolf, who's a third-rate writer, was conspiring with Jeffrey Epstein to hurt me, politically or otherwise, and that came through loud and clear. So we'll probably sue Wolf on that. And maybe the Epstein estate, I guess. I don't know, but we're going to certainly sue him.
You want to sue the Epstein estate?
What do you mean? I guess so, because he was conspiring with Wolf to do harm to me politically. That's not a friend.
On your plan for Venezuela oil, sir.
You okay down there? You okay? I don't want to let it tap up.
You said that the profits will be split with the U.S. and Venezuela both benefiting. What's Venezuela's share of the oil profits going to be?
Well, we haven't discussed that, but we're getting along very well with.
It's so interesting to watch how aware he is. You know, when you pay attention to him, he's not only aware of everybody that's in there, and his ability to focus. Like, you see him, like, his face completely changes. He'll see somebody down, he makes that funny comment, "You all right down there?" And then he like zeroes in on somebody, and his entire focus is on that person. And, you know, he's listening to what they're saying and thinking about his response, and the way he's able to just switch back and forth and have so much information in his head is really amazing, especially for his age. But it is almost, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost supernatural, but it's pretty amazing just to watch him sometime. I don't know if you guys enjoy just watching how capable he is in this situation. I don't think we've ever had a president that's this open, to where it's just like he's literally in the cameras all day long. You know, whether he's answering questions to the press on the plane, on the runway, in front of the White House, in front of Mar-a-Lago. I mean, it's just like he's always, or is he, you know, up on stage giving speeches to the WEF. I mean, it's just like, how does he maintain his energy? What's the secret?
Well, and they're doing a really good job. We're going to be selling a lot of oil, and we'll take some, and they'll take a lot, and they're going to do very well. They're going to make more money than they've ever made, and it's going to be beneficial to us. We're going to really, I think Venezuela is really going to turn around. You know, I opened up the airspace over Venezuela, so that now people from Venezuela came from Venezuela here. They're going to be able to go back for the first time, go back to Venezuela and stay, perhaps, or go back and see their relatives, go for a short period of time.
Sir, do you think China's going to get their money back from all the money they lent to Venezuela for
I don't
oil?
know. I don't know anything about that, but I'll tell you what, China is welcome to come in and would make a great deal in oil. You know, we welcome China. We've already made a deal. India's coming in, and they're going to be buying Venezuelan oil. as opposed to buying it from Iran. So we've already made that deal, the concept of the deal. But China's welcome to come in and buy oil.
On Venezuela, do you think that Machado should be able to return to Venezuela?
I'd love to be able to do something with it and maybe putting the sides together, doing something. I think she's a very fine person. But I think I have to say at the same time, the current leadership is doing a very good job.
Did you have any knowledge of the arrest of Don Lemon before it happened? Did you have any conversation?
No, I don't know anything about the Don Lemon thing, but he's a sleazebag. Everyone's known that. He's a washed-up. Probably, from his standpoint, the best thing that could happen to him. He's getting, he had no viewers. He was a failure. He was a failed host, and now he's in the news. I didn't know anything about it.
So what's your response to Claudia Sheinbaum's warning that the embargo or the restriction on Cuban oil to Cuba could cause a humanitarian crisis there?
Well, it doesn't have to be humanitarian crisis. I think they probably would come to us and want to make a deal. So Cuba would be free again. They'll come to us, they'll make a deal, but Cuba really got a problem. They have a problem. I know so many people from Cuba, but we have a lot of people in the United States right now that would love to go back to Cuba, and we'd like to work that out.
What do you want to see from Cuba? I mean, what do you need to see to make that
We'll
kind
work
of
a
deal?
deal. I think we're going to work a deal with Cuba. I think, we'll be kind. We have a situation that's very bad for Cuba. They have no money, they have no oil. Venezuela, they live off Venezuelan money and oil, and none of that's coming now. And then the president of Mexico, President Sheinbaum, was very good. I said, look, we don't want you sending oil there, and she's not sending oil.
Under plans for Washington, D.C., sir, the Washington Post reported that you're considering an arch that's 250 feet high. Can you talk a little bit about that and address critics who say that might be a little bit too large for the space?
We're considering an ark. It's like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. So for 200 years they wanted to build an ark. There are 57 cities throughout the world that have them. We're the only major city, Washington, D.C., that doesn't. The circle prior to the bridge, the Arlington Bridge, has been waiting for hundreds of years to have this done. In fact, there are 4 Eagles that got built. But it was interrupted by a thing called the Civil War. And so it never got built. Then they almost built something in 1902, but it never happened. So we have an unbelievable ark that I think will be the most beautiful in the world being built there. It's going to be built there.
250 feet.
I don't know what the height is. It's just appropriate for the site. We're setting up a committee, and the committee's going to be going over.
So he's talking about an ark. I remember we saw this post yesterday, I believe it was, where he posted a picture of the ark in India and said that we're building an ark. Does anybody know why? Like, why do we need to have an ark? What is the significance behind the ark? Is there some kind of is it indicative of something? I don't see why we need to have one. I imagine it's important.
But it'll be substantial. I like it.
When I first heard ark, I was thinking like Noah's ark. Like, oh, are they building something to preserve like data or, seeds? I know we have an ark in the Atlantic or in the Arctic. We have the Arctic vault, but the ark, I don't know why we need an ark.
Get to be the biggest one of all. We're the biggest, most powerful nation.
We just need the biggest thing. He just wants the biggest everything.
It's a very exciting job, actually. They've been waiting for many years, just like the ballroom. For 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom. Now we're going to put up the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world, as far as I'm concerned. And I could have built a much bigger one. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in keeping with. I didn't want it to be taller than the White House, etc. So I wanted it to be in keeping, but it's a really beautiful building done by some of the best architects in the world, the ballroom. Likewise, the Ark, I think it's going to be great. We're just setting up a committee now for the Ark.
Could the money from the lawsuit that you may settle with yourself go towards paying for that arch or for the
Well, we hadn't thought of it, but we're going to probably probably, it's sort of a strange position because I have a lawsuit, like the break-in of Mar-a-Lago, and I pay myself that somehow will never look good. So when I had other people, a lot of outside people said, what a great idea. Because nobody cares how much if it goes to good charities. So you settle by giving charities a lot of money. And I think we're going to do something like that. We're looking to do something like
Would
that.
charity be to pay for the ballroom and for the arch?
No, I don't think either of those. I'm talking about American Cancer Society. I think they should be probably established charities.
On a answer, you had
I would say established and respected charities.
on a answer, you had threatened those secondary tariffs on countries doing business with Iran. We haven't seen those yet. What are you holding off on?
Well, we're going to see. Look, we have a lot of things happening right now with Iran. We have a tremendous fleet going in that direction, and they're talking to us. So a lot of things could happen.
And the Canada tariffs, sir, that you talked about, are those coming?
Well, that was on the airplanes. You're talking about
No, about the China deal that they did.
if they do it.
I hate availability. You're calling Trump a pedophile. You need to get your facts straight. There's zero evidence of that. And he's actually, if anything, the evidence that has come out only proves how much they hated Trump, so much so that they were conspiring against him the entire time. He's not a pedophile. You need to be focusing on the right people and get your information from more credible sources, dude.
Deal with China, yeah, we'll do something very substantial. Because we can look, I have a great relationship with China, President Xi, but we don't want China to take over Canada. And if they make the deal that he's looking to make, China will take over Canada. And the first thing they're going to do, end ice hockey.
So speaking of China, sir, there was a military purge in that country a week ago. What do you make of that?
Well, as far as you're talking about China?
Yeah,
As far as I'm concerned, there's one boss in China, that's President Xi. That's the person I'm dealing with.
are there any concerns about stability or?
No, I think President Xi is the boss. I watch it very closely. He's highly respected in China. He's the boss.
Can I take you over 1 second? Who exactly are you negotiating with on the high level government representative there? Are you speaking with?
Where?
In Cuba. Who are you speaking with?
We're starting to talk to Cuba. Yeah, we're starting.
Can you tell us who it
Look,
is?
they need help on a humanitarian basis, and we're starting to talk to Cuba. Don't forget, a lot of people that live in our country are treated very badly by Cuba, and we want them to be. They all voted for me, and we want them to be treated well. We'd like to be able to have them go back to home to their country, which they haven't seen their family, their country for many, many decades. So we'll work that. I'll be able to work that out. Yes.
Do you have any update on what's happening with Greenland negotiations? Have you been in contact with Presidents Macron, Starmer, some of those European leaders?
Are you talking about on Greenland?
Yes.
On Greenland? Yeah. We have started a negotiation, and I think it's pretty well agreed to. I mean, they want us to do it. I think it's going to be a good deal for everybody. A very important deal. Actually, from a national security point of view, very, very important deal. I think we're going to make a deal.
Mr. President, back to your post on ICE protests. What did you mean when you said people will suffer an equal or greater consequence?
If they do anything bad to our people, they will have to suffer. I'm sorry. If they start spitting in people's faces, punching our people, punching our soldiers, our patriots, they will get taken care of in at least an equal way. They're not going to do that. Like, you see it, the way they treat our people.
All right. Time's up for that. 30 minutes on Trump. I didn't know what else to do. That's all. His posts were kind of short. I kind of like just listening to him. I don't like listening to him gaggle on the plane just because the background noise. I wish that they would filter out that noise. I'm pretty sure they could if they really wanted to, but oh well, it is what it is. It's kind of fun to listen to him talk about these things, see him interact. Let's move on to Elon Musk. See what he's been up to. All right. Building an interstellar civilization. That is his pinned post from SpaceX. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot to make the timeline filter. I need to make a note of that because I need to filter out the stuff that we don't really want to look at during the show. Let's see. I'll put it over here. Keep. There might be an add-on for it already. Make a x.com timeline filter to remove day-to-day business stuff. It'd be nice to just go through straight, prophetic comments like speaking the truth, confronting, the evils that are going on in the world. And Elon Musk does talk a lot about the future. Not that all prophecy deals with the future, but he does talk about the future a lot. See, I grew up during Jim Crow. It's amazing that since the 1960s, the Democratic Party still refuses to accept a simple fact that Black Americans, that, like every other race in the country, we are smart enough to register to vote. There is nothing more demeaning than this racist view of my race. This is why I left the Democratic Party 40 years ago and will never, ever go back. Pass the SAVE Act. So he's responding to a post from Chuck Schumer. The SAVE Act would impose Jim Crow-style restrictions on voting. It will be dead on arrival in the Senate. My statement, Leader Schumer says SAVE Act will be dead on arrival. What an idiot. Burgess Owens. Yeah, that's good. Chuck Schumer. What a snake. All right, responding to global government affairs, French judicial authorities raided X's Paris office today in connection with a politicized criminal investigation into alleged manipulation of algorithms and purported fraudulent data extraction. We are disappointed by this development, but we are not surprised. The Paris Public Prosecutor's Office widely publicized the raid, making clear that today's action was an abusive act of law enforcement theater designed to achieve illegitimate political objectives rather than advance legitimate law enforcement goals rooted in the fair and impartial administration of justice. The Paris Public Prosecutor's Office, that's a mouth twister. The Paris Public Prosecutor's Office, they need to add some more P's in there. The Paris Public Prosecutor's Party of Political Pain is plainly attempting to exert pressure on X's senior management in the United States by targeting our French entity and employees who are not the focus of this investigation. The prosecutor's office has ignored the established procedural mechanisms to obtain evidence in compliance with the international treaties and X's rights to defend itself. These procedural mechanisms are well known and used on a daily basis by judicial authorities around the world. The allegations underlying today's raid are baseless, and X categorically denies any wrongdoing. Today's staged raid reinforces our conviction that this investigation distorts French law, circumvents due process, and endangers free speech. X is committed to defending its fundamental rights and the rights of its users. We will not be intimidated by the actions of French judicial authorities today. Elon said that this is a political attack. Yeah, for sure. All right, from Tony Robinson, if there was ever a reason to reintroduce the guillotine, this is it. 10 men charged over rape of a drugged 5-year-old boy at a chemsex party in France. Agreed. This is what authorities in France should be focused on. Yeah. Instead, they're raiding his office and allowing this kind of stuff to take place. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. The U.S. government directly attacked the EU for essentially faking elections in Romania. This is pretty crazy. If you think about it, the U.S. says Europe stages elections so their candidate wins and is not a Democrat. Not a Democrat, yeah. Wow. From Vigilant Fox. Oh, we got a video.
The emails in the files suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection, and that he was going to give you the medicine without you knowing. His representative has said all of this is false. It is not on you to have to respond to the details of that alleged behavior.
Oh, she wants to.
But I wonder what your dominant emotion is when you read these news articles with these details.
Yeah.
Sad. Just unbelievable sadness. Unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I had to leave I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like, at least for me, I've been able to move on in life.
Melinda Gates. Yeah, so NPR, so what does it say? NPR, let's see, the emails in the file suggest that Bill Gates had additional affairs and that he tried to get medication to treat a sexually transmitted infection, and that he was going to give you the medication without knowing. His representatives has said all of that was false. What is your dominant emotion? Sad, just unbelievable sadness. She's not really, I believe that is the truth, even though they're denying it. Wow. Good old Bill Gates. Okay, 7 hours ago from Arthur McWaters, reposted from Elon. This is obvious, really. Only citizens of the country should be allowed to vote in the elections. Yes, I'm getting tired of hearing that. I just want to see it happen. You should have to prove that you are a citizen. Agreed, 100%. The vast, vast majority of citizens agree with these statements. Yes. Agreed. From Mike Lee, commit this to memory and tell 10 friends. A talking filibuster is not nuking the filibuster. It is just making senators speak, not sleep, to filibuster. Okay. 9 hours ago from Arthur McWaters. Yeah, we're still here. Let's see. The silent zombie filibuster isn't in the Constitution. It's legit, just made up. Used to require actual effort, talking. It's blocking one of the most important bills of all times. Republicans in the Senate could easily end it unless they continue to apply loser logic. Mike is being 100% sensible here. Loser logic. Yeah. Social media censored during elections. Let's see, Europe is jailing people for words. Legalized 500,000 immigrants. Ex-offices raided by police. Man charged for discussing remigration. People leaving to seek asylum in the U.S. Europe is falling apart. Indeed. From Tennessee Emergency Management Agency, February 3rd. In response to winter storms, Fern State and local partners work together to help communities most impacted. Cool. Let's see what he has to say.
Starting next week, my government will implement the following actions. First, we will change the law in Spain to hold platform executives legally accountable for many infringements taking place on their sites. This means that CEOs of these techno platforms will face criminal liability for failing to remove illegal or hateful content. And for that, we governments need to stop turning a blind eye to the toxic content shared under their watch. Second, we will turn algorithmic manipulation and amplification of illegal content into a new criminal offense. Disinformation doesn't appear by itself. It is created, promoted, and spread by certain actors. We will go after them as well as after the platforms whose algorithms amplify the disinformation for profit. No more hiding behind code. No more pretending that technology is neutral. Third,
so instead of going after the actual crime and the actual hate and the things that make people not safe, they're allowing murderers and rapists to go free, meanwhile going after the people who are calling attention to the murderers and rapists. Elon responds, Sanchez is the true fascist totalitarian. Yeah, it does seem to be the case. From Nick Sorter, 6 hours ago, breaking: more and more Republican senators are coming out and publicly calling for the SAVE Act. Great, do it.
At all this polling on the screen going back since 2018, you'll notice on all of it, it's all north of 75%, 76%, 76%, 76%, 81%, and then 83% in the last year of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj. They favor photo ID to be able to vote.
What about by party? What's the party breakdown?
Yeah, normally you might expect, hey, there'd be a big divide by party with Republicans really for it and Democrats really against it. But not really here. I mean, just take a look here. Favor photo ID to vote. You got 95% of Republicans, pretty much all of them, but even 71% of Democrats favor photo ID to vote. So again, Nicki Minaj posting that on X, and what you see is that the American people, actually, it's not really all that controversial. The American people are...
So the only ones fighting against this are the ones who probably were elected into office via cheating. Because if that many Democrats are supportive of photo ID, they probably believe that a fair election would probably put them in office. Because there are definitely Democrats who have gone into office in place of other better Democrats.
Are with Nicki Minaj, whether they are Republican or even if they are Democrats. We're talking about 7 in 10 Democrats agreeing with Nicki Minaj that you, in fact, should show a voter photo ID to vote.
What's the racial breakdown?
Okay, what's the racial breakdown on this, right? Because I think a lot of people make the argument that people of color, non-white Americans, have a harder time procuring a photo ID to vote. But even here, take a look here. Favor photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that, in fact, you should have a photo ID to be able to vote.
So something of a non-controversy, in other words.
That's very good. The alliteration of Mr. John Berman, that Harvard education, paying off once again.
Harold, and thank you very much.
I don't know.
At all this polling on the screen going back since 20...
All right, from Hamdan bin Mohammed. This is a journey we began together last year at the World Government Summit. Elon Musk with the Dubai Loop. We look forward to continuing our partnership to usher a new era of mobility that improves the quality of life for the people of Dubai. This will be super cool. Let's see. To sum it all up, a comprehensive 10-year censorship campaign, the EU Commission has successfully pressured social media platforms to censor true information in the United States, targeted U.S. political content for censorship, and interfered in elections across Europe. Yeah. More about voter ID. Friendly reminder that every other developed nation in the world requires voter ID. Indeed. I like Nick Shirley.
If Elon didn't buy X, it'd be very unlikely that Trump was elected. We wouldn't have free speech. And
and this is one of the things that leads me to believe that Elon Musk is, and this goes again. So there's things that happen when you're an observer and you collect data in order to make decisions based on prophecy. And I think this is something that not everybody does. But, I have opinions about what I think things mean in the scripture and what my expectation is about a particular fulfillment, because we know that these things were mentioned about the future, and we're excited to see them come to pass in our day and age. I'm in a lot of ways, I'm flustered that not every single church in the entire planet, every single person who follows Yeshua isn't trying to understand the fulfillment of the prophecy. It's just like the whole world has blinders because they think that the fulfillment is going to happen in a certain way, that they just cannot see what's happening in front of their face, unfortunately. But yeah, so this is one of those situations to where my opinion about Elon Musk initially, when we were considering the Donald Trump and Elon Musk, I had very serious concerns about Elon Musk being one of the two witnesses. Donald Trump was a little bit easier just because of Trump derangement syndrome. I've followed him. Technically, I've followed both of them for most of their careers, but I've known Donald Trump a lot longer. As a kid, I remember him, giving people homes. I remember his The Apprentice show. I remember him on Oprah Network. I mean, like, he's been involved in my life a lot longer. He was the easier one to identify. Trump derangement syndrome came on suddenly. It was indicative of a spiritual movement against him. And really with the assassination attempt and then the way he responded, was really kind of part of what solidified, he's definitely one of the two witnesses. I mean, obviously I had been considering him that before that, but my point is in considering who the two witnesses are, I thought it would be like Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, to be honest. That was my opinion, because it made sense logically that it would be the United States and Israel, the two that are testifying of the creator of the heavens and the earth, right? But the problem is Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't tick nearly as many of the boxes when it comes to the witnesses. Elon Musk does. When you look at Donald Trump and Elon Musk, both of these men are having an impact globally. They both stand before God in order to provide freedoms and truth. And I think that's that's why the imagery of the olive oil, the olive trees, was given. Is olive oil is it provides, when you think about like olive oil, like what it is, number one, it's something of value, right? In the future, it's said that there will be olive trees that will give 10 presses of oil, meaning they'll just continually give value. So these two anointed ones who stand before the Lord of the whole earth provide value to the whole planet. And I don't think there are two people on the planet who are providing more value than Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Donald Trump is having an impact on the entire world. He is a clear leader that people respect, whether they like him or not. And Elon Musk has done so much for free speech and for truth and justice that I just can't see anyone else. It was really the deciding factor for Elon Musk was really when somebody in the chat had brought up Elon in the scripture. If you're not aware of this, there is actually someone named Elon written about in the scripture. He was a judge over Israel. And as a judge, he also had a big family. He had I think, was it 9 children or something like that? And they rode donkeys. So, which was indicative of his wealth. So the guy in the guy in the scripture with the same name, Elon, not only was he wealthy, but he had a big family, and he was a judge over Israel. So I think people get really biased in their mind, and it kind of blinds them. Number one, when you try and filter through religious beliefs, it can blind you to reality. If your expectation is that this is going to be somebody with magic powers from the past, you're not going to look at the people who are standing in front of you doing the things that was prophesied about. And the other thing that kind of blinds people is, there's an expectation to where they expect somebody to be quoting chapter and verse, right? But the thing is truth is found in more than just scripture. I mean, yes, the scripture is true, but the scripture is telling us about what the truth is in the reality in which we live in the creation. So just because someone's not quoting chapter and verse doesn't mean that they're not, living, they're not obeying God or, walking by inspiration of the Holy Spirit. There's a lot people don't know about Elon Musk. He was raised both Christian and Jewish. He went to Christian schools and Jewish schools. He's a prolific reader with a photographic memory, from what I understand. to where he's read the Bible, he's read the Quran, he's read, he's even read through the Talmud. He retains all of this information in his head, and I relate with him more because he solves problems in the same way that I do. Very evidence based, goes back to simplicity, and he's reluctant to put labels on things because labels are so limiting. Recently, he was asked in an interview who does he admire most, and his answer was the creator of the heavens and the earth. That's my exact answer. Who do I admire the most? The creator of the heavens and the earth. There is no other. Above him, there is no other. So, it's interesting with what Nick Shirley, that just reminded me with what Nick Shirley is saying here about Elon.
And you'd see just more and more corruption.
I agree. I think that's the one thing that came out of, Elon and also this election. You could say whatever you want about the Trump administration too, but like the free speech one, I know firsthand, it's way different than when he was not in office.
Yeah.
Like it's completely different.
Because it leveled out the playing field. Because if all these other companies want to be able to get the amount of views, they have to unlock their censorship and play on the same playing field.
Elon kind of like with his chess move, he forced all those other platforms, YouTube, Instagram, a lot. Instagram and Meta is way different.
Instagram, you can like see dead people on your.
You could post whatever the fuck on Instagram. We used to post on Instagram. We used to get taken down all the time.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time like a post is getting taken down off Instagram. During COVID, everything was getting taken down on Instagram.
Yeah.
So you're right. Elon did. I mean, what he did for free speech was insane.
Yeah, and people like to attack Elon. I'm like, dude, he's been the biggest net positive for society in so many ways. It's crazy.
Yeah, I haven't done my spiel on the Antichrist in a while. I'll give you a too long, didn't read real quick here, but I've talked about this quite a lot on the show. The Antichrist is not a person. When people say Antichrist, they typically mean the little horn from Daniel. The one who uproots 3 other kings in order to come into power in the end times. There's a man explicitly written about in the book of Daniel that is talked about in the times of the ends. He's never called Antichrist, and he does not have there's no attributes of the word Antichrist where that's written about. And this is kind of a problem with hermeneutics. You get people who they use hermeneutics, which is the study of Scripture, and they use it in order to reinforce their doctrines and their beliefs. And so but they only use it conditionally where it supports their beliefs, and they abandon it completely when it comes to proving that they might be wrong. So if you use hermeneutics, one of the principles of hermeneutics is all Scripture interprets itself in the verse, in the context, and where the word is used before. And the first usage of a word defines its boundaries, its meanings. A note about hermeneutics is these are man-made rules. There's nothing in Scripture about hermeneutics. And to be honest, and then you have another issue with, I'm taking Elon's time here. You have another issue with hermeneutics in that it depends on the belief that the Scripture is the unadulterated Word of God. And I'm okay if you want to believe that. The problem is which one? Because there are tens of thousands of Bibles. There are of various translations and configurations. There are some with 60 books of the Bible, 66 books of the Bible, 82 books of the Bible. Some of them include, there's just so many variations. It's just like which one is the approved Word of God. Most people are referring to the Bible they grew up with, and by and large, a lot of people refer to the King James Version as the Scripture of God, the Word of God. When they say word, they're typically thinking of the King James Version, which when you look at the history of that, which version of the King James, because there's different versions of the King James. There's the 1611 version, which has 88 books of the Bible. And then you've got the version that we have today, which has got 66 books of the Bible. But, the collection of those is based on the Roman Catholic Church putting together a canon of the, approved, scriptures and letters and stuff like that. Here's the thing that people, when you get narrow-minded that's the only source of truth, it really prevents you from seeing God as a whole, because there are definitely letters and books and information about that. There are prophets who have written things from God, whether by dream or vision, that has been written down that are not included in the canon of the Scripture. Obvious, probably things that went against whatever the church wanted you to believe. So hermeneutics is intended to have a framework of agreement where we can have these tools which we can implement in order to come to an agreement of what things mean. So, for instance, the first usage of a word, the Antichrist, for instance, that word is only used in technically five. The word is only used 5 times in 4 places in the Scripture, and all of them are in the epistles of John, 1st and 2nd John. And when you look at the attributes associated with that word, there's 3 main attributes, but there's also some additional information. So the attributes are, they deny that number 1, it's a spirit. And it's a spirit that came after Jesus left, because it's against Christ, antichrists. The attributes of the spirit of Antichrist are, it causes people to deny the Father and the Son, to deny that Jesus is the Messiah, and deny that Jesus came in the flesh. Some of the additional information is people with this spirit have been around since Jesus left. Because if you read 1 John 4:8, it says, "You had heard that it was coming, and it is now here." Jesus, in fact, warned people about the spirit of Antichrist in John 5:43. I believe that's the one that says, "I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. Another one will come after me, who comes in his own name. Him you will receive." So he warned about this spirit that would come in its own name, that would deny the Father and the Son, because it claims to be the Father and the Son. It denies that Jesus is the Messiah because it claims to be the Messiah. It claims to be the one doing the anointing and the anointed one. It denies that Jesus came in the flesh because it denies it is both the creator and the flesh. See what I mean? Anyway, it has those attributes: deny the Father and the Son, deny that Jesus is the Messiah, and deny that Jesus came in the flesh. Those are the attributes of the spirit of Antichrist. Those attributes are not used in conjunction with the little horn. The little horn's attributes, if you want to read, the context around that, is that it usurps 3 other kings and rises to power. It's somebody it's some unknown little nobody who rises to a great position and conquers and dominates. You can see how people would kind of like try to tie those two together. But if you really want to understand things, you got to be extremely careful about conflating things. Because they've conflated that, people ignore the fact that it's an actual spirit. And one of the ways that it manifests is in doctrines, because it gets people to believe things. The spirit does. So by combining the two and saying that the Antichrist is this end time ruler who goes into a temple and declares himself God, you're ignoring so much other information in the Scripture, and this is one of the things that blinds people from seeing prophecy fulfilled. Is they're just looking for some end time guy to go into a building and say, "I'm God." They completely miss the fact that there are, denominations and religions that will do that same thing. They will tell you that their prophet is God, that their God is the God, even though he does not behave like the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which is the thing that we're learning about with Islam. Is the God that is enforced by Islam beliefs does not appear to be the same God of Israel. So, people are looking for a man to go into a temple and declare himself God when they're missing an entire religion that is already doing that. See what I mean? I did a terrible job doing the short version of that. That was meant to be the short version. The short version is that the word Antichrist is only used 4 times in the Bible. The way people use it, you would think it's used in 50 different places in the Bible. It's not. So I'll give you a kind of an estimate of a statistic. By using the word Antichrist rather than using what's actually written in the scripture, you consolidate, about 20 different people, 20 different individuals with different purposes and different things that they do and accomplish into one guy. So you miss all the value of those different individuals. And then also you miss the fact that there's a belief system, there's religions and idolatry involved in the deception that causes people to walk away from the true creator of the heavens and the earth. That's what happens when you combine all that together. Is it really blinds you? It makes it so you cannot see the truth, and then you wonder, and then you go yell at people who are trying to show you, what's actually written and what's the truth, because you think, well, this person's the Antichrist. Yeah, sorry. That went longer than usual. We used up all of Elon's time. We'll have to give him another 15 minutes for that. Here. There we go. 15 more minutes on Elon's clock. We're doing okay. We're about a little over an hour now. Yeah, and suffice it to say, Donald Trump is not the Antichrist. He's not the Antichrist. He's not even the little horn. So and we just did a study on this last week about the little horn. We went through Daniel 8 and Daniel 9, and the person who is the little horn he comes out of a particular area geographically. Donald Trump is not. He's Scottish. Donald Trump is Scottish. He doesn't even come out of the same area where the little horn comes out of. The little horn is most likely involved with Iran or Saudi Arabia, which is why we're focusing on Islam this week, to learn about Islam and Muslims and Iran and what's going on around the world, because honestly, that's the religion that is likely involved with the beast that rises from the earth. And the image that is made of that beast that does the enforcement, very likely associated with Islam. Nothing to do with Donald Trump. People want to, this is one of the things about the two witnesses is you need to wake up about, if you hate Trump because of CNN is telling you that he's a pedophile and that he's a criminal because he's been convicted or whatever lies they're feeding about you, that's just the adversary trying to blind you to somebody who's actually trying to work for the betterment of mankind. So you've got Donald Trump and Elon Musk, which is trying to save people, trying to save the world, trying to fight crime, and then while people are hating on these two guys, they're literally protecting a death cult, really, a religion of death. They're protecting and defending a religion of death, which is continuing to creep in and gain a foothold, so that it's ultimately going to rise up, and then just like it's going to happen like a snare. It's going to, there's going to be a sudden snap to where you're going to have an Aloxa flood type of event globally. And whether it's hand-to-hand kind of combat like it was in Israel, or if it's bigger scale like nuclear, the thing we know about the Great Tribulation is that it's the worst thing to ever happen on the planet. And the fact that there's 8 or 9 billion people on the planet right now, I'm still up in the air on what that means. But that's the whole point for why we're looking at Iran and Islam and Muslims and stuff like that, and trying to learn about that. Not picking on anybody in particular. This comes up from time to time. The Antichrist. Some people, they're not aware. A lot of people don't study the scripture. in regards to Antichrist, or when they do, they think they're studying it, but they're really just they're looking at it through the lens of what they've been taught. Yeah. Yeah, hermeneutics, it's good in principle to try and come to an agreement, but you have to remember that it's hermeneutics, the rules of hermeneutics are man-made. And what you think is the scripture it's kind of limiting if you limit yourself only to like the King James. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that. We're still using Elon's time. Let's finish up Elon, and then I want to get into our next segment, which is bruising the head of the serpent by learning more about Iran, what's going on in Iran and Islam. And I got a video. Matter of fact, we'll watch a video that's the difference between Islam in Israel and Iran. Where are we? All right. Back to Ian Miles Chung here. So Spain, France, and UK have launched an unprecedented attack on Elon Musk's X. They're afraid of him, and they're afraid of his platform because he offers freedom of speech to Europeans who are otherwise stifled and censored from being able to speak their minds over efforts to replace them with a compliant class of migrant voters. Europe is no longer a democracy, and its liberal governments no longer represent the will of the people. There's definitely a fight for the minds of people, for what people believe. And right now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they're allowing you the freedom to decide, to access the information, to see both sides and make your own decisions. The world is fighting against them. Like right here, Spain, France, and the Europe are they're attacking Elon Musk because they don't want people to have freedom of speech. They want to control what they believe, which sounds a lot like that beast from the earth, you know. The market, you're eventually going to get to a point to where you have no choice but to bow down to a particular belief. Here, let's see, what was it? Revelation 13, the beast from the earth. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand on their foreheads. I don't think he can really fully do this until the two witnesses and what it is that they're doing are dead. Part of the reason why why the beast rises up and kills the two witnesses, because they're allowing people to hear both sides of the story so that they are not permanently marked. And I'm pretty confident that the mark of the beast is a belief. And the reason is because if you just look at the mark of the 144,000, then I looked, and behold, this is literally right after the verse. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Tomorrow, remind me, we'll learn about the Bismillah. This number could be the Bismillah, which is the Islamic in the name of Allah. There's a pretty good argument to be made to support this being the Bismillah, especially with what we're seeing in the world. I think we'll have more confirmation on this in February. But look at the lamb, the 144,000. Then I looked, and behold, a lamb standing on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written on their foreheads. So these are people who believe that the lamb's father is their God. That's who they serve. That's who's sealed in their forehead. So it stands to reason that the mark of the beast in their forehead would be something other than the lamb's father's name. And this is where I'm leaning towards it being Allah, to where this could be in the name of Allah, could be the mark of the beast for the name that's written on the forehead and the mark, the right hand, because that's indicative of what you believe and what you do. The right hand is indicative of what you do scripturally. And there's a strong case to be made for calculating the number of the beast, 666, being the Bismillah. I don't have a video prepped. Maybe I'll go look, see if I can find the one that does a good job explaining that. while we watch the difference between Israel and Iran. But here, let's go back over here. All right, let's see. If you make short films, okay, we're not going to read Grok stuff. Let's see. Tim Waltz explicitly rigged the system and architected election fraud. First, he signed a bill giving driver's license to every illegal. Yeah, okay, we know about this stuff. Dirty Sanchez. He's calling Pedro Sanchez Dirty Sanchez. That's terrible. Don't Google Dirty Sanchez. Unless you want to be grossed out. Dirty Sanchez is a tyrant and traitor to the people of Spain. Yeah. Poop emoji. All right, what is this?
Democrats used to believe that border security and immigration enforcement were just common sense ideas. Don't believe it? Take their word for it.
Americans are right to demand better border security and better enforcement of the immigration laws. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked. We've had 5 million undocumented workers come over the borders. It has become an extraordinary problem.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country, and we must do more to stop it.
Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No. Any city should listen to the Department of Homeland Security. The city made a mistake not to deport someone that the federal government strongly felt should be deported. Just because your child gets across the border, that doesn't mean the child gets to stay.
We do not think the comprehensive health care benefits should be extended to those who are undocumented workers and illegal aliens. We do not want to do anything to encourage more illegal immigration.
People say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants from coming here? And the number one answer we give is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud.
Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple.
Open borders. You're doing away with the concept of a nation state.
Our nation, like all nations, has the right and obligation to control its borders, and no matter how decent they are, no matter their reasons, the 11 million who broke these laws should be held accountable.
Yeah.
For decades, these weren't controversial or radical ideas. The only thing that changed is them.
True. All right, so I found that video. It looks like Chuck Missler started talking about the Bismillah. Geez, like 8 years ago. Interesting. We'll watch that today. The EU censorship files. We don't need to look at that. Take his word that it's happening. France is fast tracking to take third world country status. France is sinking to third world status. Over devastating new figures emerge. Don't need to read that. Tyrants love censorship. That seems to be a theme today. Censorship. We saw this already. This is crucial to save democracy in America. We are closer than ever to voting on the SAVE Act in the Senate. I like this guy. See what he has to say.
Doctor billed the government $120 million in a single year, claiming to oversee 1,900 patients. With almost 2,000 hospice agencies, LA County has more than 36 states combined, and 30 times more than either Florida or New York.
18% of the whole country's home health care billing is coming out of Los Angeles County. How is that possible?
So it seems to be like Minnesota. They are robbing people blind in LA County. Now, the population of LA County is like
this
in
just
between,
the Democrats'
9
new
and
playbook?
10 million people.
Rob
Florida
people
has
blind?
around 23 million people. Yet LA County has more hospice agencies than all of Florida. Really think about that.
I get it. So they're pointing out fraud in other countries. We've got to keep moving, though. As much as I'd love to watch this whole video. Boring Company, French police, more censorship stuff, more Save the Act. Just in, the Tongva tribe, whose ancestral... Oh, no. So this is from Red Wave Press. Just in, the Tongva tribe, whose ancestral land Billie Eilish's multi-million-dollar Los Angeles mansion sits on, confirmed she has not contacted them about returning the stolen land. A spokesman for the Tongva tribe told the Daily Mail, as the first people of the greater Los Angeles basin, we do understand that her home is situated in our ancestral land, they stated, adding to the A-lister has not reached out to the tribe herself. Eilish has not contacted our tribe directly regarding her property. Oh my gosh, what does this say?
Reports Eilish's multi-million-dollar home is located on tribal lands. The Tongva Nation says they've inhabited a 4,000 square mile region now known as the Greater Los Angeles area. A spokesperson for the tribe tells the Daily Mail, we do understand.
Ha 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 ha. Okay, we get it. Let's see, the implementation of the first phase of the Dubai Loop. Okay, we don't really need to know that right now. Still a 12-year-old boy alive in my soul, screaming. One day, dude, let's see, one real dude named Elon Musk is actually turning our childhood fantasies into reality. Indeed. Tesla news. Anything less than that's Kardashev stuff. Let's see. The people underestimate. How many people will switch airlines for great internet? Tom Cruise. Are we pretty much done? I think we're done. This is nothing really new here. I think we're actually some days be like I think we're actually done. So this is yesterday's news. All right, cool. Let us move on to our new segment.
I come in my own name. A shadow falls, a world aflame.
There.
I rise, I rule, I stake my claim. A serpent's coil, a deadly game. I build my throne, I seek my fame. I wear the crown you.
Let's talk about a recent development.
All right, so the purpose of this segment is to understand our enemy, the one who comes in his own name. He's a narcissist by nature and a murderer from the beginning. So we're going to start with this video from Chuck Missler. I love Chuck Missler. So this is 8 years ago. And this is probably the first time I had heard this. There are people who have since done even further in-depth studies on this, given what we're seeing in the world today. With Iran and the rise of Islam and what's going on in Europe and the no-go zones on the Rabats that we learned about yesterday, this is looking to be a very likely candidate for the mark of the beasts that is mentioned in Revelation 13. So let's listen to Chuck here.
I want to shift gears here to another topic that is of interest to most Bible-teaching Christians. And that's this business of the 666. There are thousands of books lining the shelves of libraries on the 666. Virtually all of them are wrong because they haven't read it carefully and they're pointing in the wrong direction. I'll come
you
back
guys hear
to
that okay?
But what we're talking about, of course, is Revelation 13, the last few verses, where it says this Antichrist, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand and on their foreheads, that no man may buy or sell, save he had the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And so now, and then we have this famous verse at verse 18. Here's wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. And his number is 666. How many have read that before? Okay, it's a familiar topic. All right. Now, most people presume that this comes from 3 Greek letters. And these 3 Greek letters happen to have both Greek and Hebrew are unique in that every member of their alphabet has a numerical value. And people can play games with that in lots of different ways. That's called gematria. These 3 Greek letters stand for 660 and 6, and that's where you get the 666. Many places in the Bible, the numerical value of a word or letters carries a second meaning. Nowhere in the Bible does the numerical value of those letters convey its primary meaning. There's some very clever secondary meanings that are fascinating to look at, but understand that nowhere does the Holy Spirit use gematria to be the primary connector. You follow what I'm saying? Okay. Now, here, those letters, of course, have names and so forth, but the first and last of those 2 letters also happen to be the first and last letters of the word Christos in the Greek. So that's kind of colorful, and many people dwell on that. And the letter that's missing in the middle, which looks sort of like a serpent, makes this the symbol of the Antichrist. So you can play with that. It has a design appeal, and I'm not disparaging that. I just want you to be aware of that. But all of this may be a false start. I'll come back to that in a minute. Now, to go one step further, this has led to studies of that everybody misses the point of that verse 18. We have articles about insertable chips. We have articles about barcodes. All these have to do with the number, the 666 being his number. Okay? And remember, it's his number and name that are the critical thing, not ours. This has got nothing to do with PIN numbers. It's got nothing to do with barcodes other than in some not all, some barcodes use a 6 as a separator signal. All these, I was on the board of NanoPower. I've been in that technology world. And let me tell you candidly, I think most of what you read about that is utter nonsense. Not that it isn't real, and not that it doesn't lead to political control. Obviously, electronic funds transfer provides a means of control to a regime. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about some kind of identity of the guy there. What happens in the book of Revelation, people who identify themselves with the leader are forbidden, or forego any chance of salvation. So having a PIN number isn't the issue. Swearing allegiance to some leader whose symbolism is here is to be avoided. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're saying is this is like a doctrine or a belief. This is something that you believe that changes who you are and how you behave. It's highly unlikely to be technology. Like I said, I work in technology. I do not need a microchip to identify you.
But most articles confuse that. They're talking about the wrong side of that coin. They're all worried about insertable chips. Who cares? That's got nothing to do with who your allegiance to, see? Anyway, and the Greek alphanumerics, indeed, those 3 letters do have those values. There's a couple of those, and it's one of 3 letters that have been abandoned in the Greek alphabet long ago. But I don't want to complicate our discussion with all that. We're fumbling here in the area of gematria, where you try to draw meaning from those letters. There are people that have taken every person you can imagine, from Nero to Napoleon to Bill Clinton, you name it, and found a way to make it come out 666 through gematria. Well, first of all, that's English, not Greek, and so forth. That's foolishness. Furthermore, in gematria, if you get into that, you'll discover that there are 7 basic types, and what this really means, and I won't go through these, you can square them, you can double. What it really says, using a form of gematria, you can prove anything means anything.
Yeah.
You can indulge.
One of the reasons why I shy away from number calculations. I can't tell you how many emails and messages I get from people who have calculated something in regards to 666 and, why it proves that so-and-so is the Antichrist, which usually I correct them saying, it's not the Antichrist, you mean the mark of the beast, because that's what is actually written. The beast typically meaning king or kingdom.
And a lot of foolishness with that, bluntly, about it. Okay. Now, I have been fascinated by an observation that the only physical description of the Antichrist in the Bible is in Zechariah chapter 11, verse 17. It makes a strange little... Zechariah is full of these funny little, small little nibbles. It says, woe to the idol shepherd, that's I-D-O-L, in other words, an idolic shepherd. Woe to the shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. What does that mean? I have no idea. But I have a suspicion. We know from other passages, in fact several of them, that relate to the fact that he will apparently suffer a head wound, be regarded as dead, and apparently come back to life. And there's some good scholars.
So even the great Dr. Chuck Missler confused the first and second beasts and, you know, all of these things for the Antichrist. And this is why I say that it's important to understand the first beast is the beast from the sea with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 10 crowns. The second beast is from the land with 2 horns. And then there's also a serpent or a dragon in there too, giving power to the people. But from observation, it seems as though the United States is the head wounds, the head that was wounded unto death, being the Biden administration. It's a guess. I don't know if I'm right about that. I could absolutely be wrong. Somebody provide a better argument. But just based on the fact that Donald Trump keeps saying that we were dead and then now we are alive, and the fact that the whole world is wondering after the United States, and who can make war with him? You know, all those things that are said about that head that was wounded to death and is now alive, are true today with the situation we find ourselves in. So, I can't fault him. This was long before any of this stuff started to be fulfilled. But one of the problems when you conflate everything together under one person.
That have studied that, and you can argue that it's a real death that he came to life. You can argue it's just simulated. Who cares? It obviously fools everybody in any case. But notice, it could be that people who, when he comes back and takes charge, people who swear their allegiance to him might take his emblem or mark, where? Over the right eye and on the arm. That the darkened eye and ineffective arm may be vestiges of that head wound. And people may...
Hizzy, a long time ago, I see where you're coming from. I don't know if you're saying that because that may be something that I had said. I think in 2020, I made a video where I had associated, might be 2021. I made a video where I associated the 7 churches with the 7 churches from the book of Revelations with the stars in heaven. And I drew some conclusions based on that mapping. And I also had noted that I found it was interesting that, what was it? Sardis was the dead church, and it just so happens that there are 7 heads on the beast from the sea. I had speculated, I wonder if those 7 heads aren't the 7 churches, and if one of the churches isn't the one wounded unto death. I've since kind of moved away from that kind of speculation, just because while it did kind of fit, it doesn't seem to be aligning with what we're seeing in the world today. I'm actually even moving away from, 6 is the number of man. So when you have 3 6s, man, then, it causes you to look at things like the 3 crosses and stuff like that. And there's an argument to be made with the Greek letters, the chi, kashi, stigma. Dr. Missler started saying this, that, chi is also an abbreviation for Christ's. So chi, kashi, stigma, if you were to, one way you could translate that is the mark of Christ's cross. to where I was kind of even moving in the direction of false Christianity that was leading people down the path of idolatry. But you have to reconcile, your opinion with what's actually happening. So, while I may have that opinion, what we actually observe is the rise of Islam right now. Just look at what's going on in Europe. So that is kind of pushing me back into, this Bismillah being a possibility, because there's an explanation of 666 being the Bismillah, which means in the name of Allah. And I'm hoping he explains it here with the graphics, because there are Arabic letters that look like the Greek chi, kashi, stigma, that are what's called the Bismillah. So let's see if he gets to that. If not, I have another video that does that.
Use that to identify with himself. Imagine people in Israel that might wear an eye patch to identify themselves with Moshe Dayan. Clumsy example, but you get. And by the way, it was the left eye, not right eye. But the point is, if your leader has some kind of manifest defect, it's natural for his followers to somehow make an emblem of that. Is my point. That's a possibility. I wouldn't press it too far. I call it to your attention just for your notes. But I'm indebted to Walid Shabbat for a suggestion, not a teaching. He doesn't push this that hard, but he does highlight a possibility that I want you to be aware of. In Islam, he was watching a movie called The Kingdom of Heaven. It reminded him of something he knew back, that Islamic warriors always have a headband, they say in the name of Allah, and also a shadaharan, a band on their right arm. That's a symbol of an Islamic warrior. And in the movie, they were faithful to that. That's what reminded him of that. And that's what caused him to start connecting something here. The Shadaharan is a declaration of allegiance to Allah and Muhammad, and it's worn by millions on their forehead.
Yeah, Hizzy. Well, I tell you, Rome and the Roman Catholic Church is definitely still on my radar. But right now we're considering Islam, because there are some parallels. Fury brought this to my attention, that Saudi Arabia, was it Saudi Arabia, Fury, has 7 hills also. And it seems as though there may be more symbolism that lines up with Islam than with Rome and the Roman Catholic Church, which might actually be a massive revelation, because, one of the interesting things about the 7 churches in Revelation 2 and 3 is they all follow Yeshua. They all encircle the Son of God. And they each have, 5 of them have, Fury says Mecca. 5 of the churches that surround the Son of God they've got problems. So, it's entirely possible that the Roman Catholic Church could be represented by, one of the churches that has problems. And the thing is the Roman Catholic Church isn't really a single entity anymore. It's broken off into lots of variations of Catholicism. Some of those variations, I imagine, could fall under Sardis, which doesn't do anything good for Yeshua. But there are some who are in, that group that haven't soiled their clothes. So, I think what that could mean is just like, even if people are committing idolatry, or even if they are like following Baal, or suffering the woman Jezebel, because these are some of the issues the churches deal with, it's not as bad as, like Islam is one of the reasons why we're learning about this. And, I admit I haven't spent a lot of time learning about Islam, because I was focused on like doctrines that promoted idolatry, but I was looking in the wrong direction, and just to understand these things and to kind of refute my own opinions and learn, we're considering Islam and Islamic fulfillments of some of these prophecies.
And their right arm, interesting. And it's in the Greek, it shows up there too. Moving on here. The number of his name, multitude, there's a question mark here. Let's go back and take a look at this verse 18 of Revelation 13. Here's wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. Now, the word wisdom is pretty straightforward. That's Sophia, wisdom, full of intelligence, just what we think it means. But the word count in English is actually the Greek word theso, which is to count or reckon or decide by voting. It's to reckon it, okay? All right, that's close, but might be a little different. Okay. Then we have this word arithmos, which is in this verse 3 times. What does that mean in the Greek? It can mean one of 2 things. Arithmos can mean a specific number. It also can mean an indefinite number, such as a number of people came over last night. How many? Don't know. A number. In other words, an indefinite number. It's used that way in the Greek, or it's used as a precise number. Either way. Okay. Now, man is straightforward. That's anthropos. That's a man, a human being, in other words. Okay. And then his number is 666. And that could be those 3 Greek letters. It might be something else. Now, let's take a look at the manuscripts. At the Oxythicus papyri, if you look closely at the 3rd line, you see those, what apparently are 3 Greek letters, and that gives rise to the translation that we have got in the English, with a 666. You with me so far? However, it turns out that, that's the way you see it there. If you take a look at the, there we go, Codex Vaticanus, if you look at that more closely, Walid suggests the possibility, those aren't Greek.
Okay, so I do want to clarify one thing, because this one, he said, was chi iota. Chi iota stigma. So there are, I believe, 5 different papyri that contains this particular section of Revelation. 1 out of the 5 has chi iota stigma, which stands for 616. And then what he's going to explain is the version that is shown in the other papyri, which is chi kashi stigma, which is 666, 603 score and 6. So I just wanted to point that out because he didn't make that clear.
And 6. You with me so far? However, it turns out that that's the way you see it there. If you take a look at the there we go, Codex Vaticanus, if you look at that more closely, Walid suggests the possibility those aren't Greek letters at all. They may be Arabic letters. He would argue that the manuscript says John wrote what he saw. And he may have not he may wrote down things that we've assumed were Greek letters that are not. Now you need to understand all languages flow towards Jerusalem. All nations east of Jerusalem go from right to left. Not only Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, Sanskrit, you name it. All nations west of Jerusalem go from left to right. Obviously Latin and all its derivatives, English, German, what have you, Greek, Cyrillic, go from left to right. If that's Arabic, it doesn't go left to right, it goes right to left. And it's Walid that suggests a valid interpretation of that, if it's Arabic, would be Bism Allah. That's the right, the starting from the right hand, the first 2 letters would be Bism Allah. What looks like an X to us could be 2 crossed swords, which is the traditional insignia of Islam. And so he suggests the possibility that this, now some people say, well, that that one is up at an angle. It's that way on their flag of Iraq, by the way, at an angle. So I wouldn't make a thing of that. And so the point is, the possibility that if this is Arabic, the sign that's being talked about is in the name of Allah, the very thing that Islamic warriors wear on their forehead and on their right arm when they go into battle. Now, if you look at the various renderings of this, you turn that little signal on its belly and it looks like a serpent. How interesting. I wouldn't make too much of that. I just think it's interesting, so I'm showing it to you. Now, let's take, anyway, let's read the way Revelation 13:18 could be translated, not necessarily, but it could allow the following translation. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding decide who the multitude of the beast is. For it is the multitude of a man, in other words, Muhammad, and his multitude are in the name of Allah. Interesting possibility. Don't misunderstand Waleed or myself. Waleed's a good friend. I respect him profoundly, not only as a practitioner, but also as a scholar. He does his homework. And he doesn't sell this. He just points out as a possibility. We won't really know until we could get a much better rendering from some of the manuscripts to get a clearer perspective. But it certainly appears to be a possibility that's been overlooked. And so I share it with you in that regard. And by the way, not only Waleed, but Joel Richardson and others have picked up on this whole thing.
There you go. So that's one of the, like, I'd say that I have probably top 2 interpretations for the mark of the beast.
I'd like to welcome you all to...
And that would be, it's growing. It's growing, and it's kind of outpacing the religious idolatry that's prevalent in the Christian church. And I think it makes more sense. And then what's interesting, and this is one of the reasons why I make the distinction with, Antichrist. If you're looking for Antichrist as an individual, you may miss that it's a massive religion. And also with the man of sin, the son of perdition from 2 Thessalonians, we know from 1 Corinthians 3:16 that we are the temple of God. So in 2 Thessalonians, when it says the man of sin, the son of perdition, goes into the temple of God as God, showing himself that he is God, that's sounds like a religion. That sounds like a belief. So it sounds to me like one of the interpretations, here we'll move over to this one next. One of the interpretations of 666 could be in the name of Allah, which points directly at Islam. So, and the God of Islam going into the temple of God as God, showing itself that it is God. All right. So let us move on. I think you guys see where I'm going with that. I'll find some more videos and we'll dive into that in more depth to see what we can cover in regards to the mark of the beast. I think it's going to be really relevant in February after the 17th. With the Great Tribulation. It's very likely could be involved with that, because that seems to be where the world is going based on what's happening everywhere else in the world. And we suspect that it's happening. Oh, this is the video I wanted to end on. I actually wanted to watch, not this one, this one.
Could you explain?
Yeah, I wanted to watch a little bit of this Dennis Prager speech on yeah, you'll see why I want to listen to this. I think this gives us additional insight into this idea of the possibility of Islam being that the beast from the land, and the one that is ultimately responsible for the mark of the beast.
To me, why you think that might be the case, that you only view these organizations as threats to peace?
Obviously, those of you who applauded perceived the profundity of the question that I didn't. I said Boko Haram, that is not Arab.
Arab and or Muslim.
Yes, Arab and or Muslim, that is correct. The only beheading groups in the world today, to the best of my knowledge, are Arab or Muslim.
Why do you think that is, in your estimation?
Why do I think that is? Sad to say, it was answered by Arab intellectuals at the United Nations. This is not anti-Arab. If you love Arabs, you have to understand how low the moral level of the Arab world at this point is.
One of the most influential persons in my entire lifetime is the great Dennis Prager. Let's listen to him speak at the Oxford debate. Of course, we want to hear what you have to say about this video, so don't forget to leave your comments below. And of course, subscribe to this channel. We'll talk to you on the other end of the video.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I hope my accent enables my words to be heard as clearly as I hope to present them. I find it remarkable. Two things were remarkable, I must say, when I was first invited. One is, I actually did not believe the proposition. It was, and I read it, this House believes that Hamas is a greater threat to peace than Israel. And I give you my word of honor, I actually called Oxford, I went online, I couldn't believe this was an actual proposition. You mean that's debatable? I actually thought for a moment that pro-Israel forces at Oxford had somehow put this into the lineup, as we call it in America when you put a lineup for your players on your team. I was stunned. The other was when I realized, by God, they really are serious. It must be an academic institution. And I realized, as Orwell said, some things are so foolish, only an intellectual could believe them. And I realized, okay, this is it. This is a Western world tragedy, the amount of nonsense that is often believed in academia. And so this is a debatable proposition at such an illustrious institution. It's actually sad, as I will point out over and over, just appealing to your common sense. You need know nothing about the Middle East to understand how absurd the proposition is. It's of course valid, but that it's debatable is an absurdity. The other is my biography. I must say I have been called many things, including controversial, but of my long resume, just to be described as controversial, may I say to you that to the millions of people that I broadcast to every day, I am not controversial whatsoever. So clearly, those who invited me find it controversial. All right. Let me just give you an analogy. I didn't check, I should have. In the 1930s, was there a debate at this auspicious place? Was there a debate over the following proposition, that Nazi Germany, that Great Britain is a greater threat to peace than Nazi Germany, or Nazi Germany is a greater threat to peace than Great Britain? Was there a debate in the 1930s? That is a perfect analogy to what we are debating tonight. Nazi Germany is to Israel what Nazi Germany was to Britain, what Hamas is to Israel. Whether you agree with Israeli policies or not, and I don't agree with all Israeli policies, it is irrelevant. The question is that analogy fair? So let me ask you a question. I'll take you in a moment, actually in 2 moments. But let me begin. Who is the greater threat to peace? Let's forget Israel, okay? Who is the greater threat to peace in Syria? ISIS or Israel? Who is the greater threat to peace in Lebanon? Hezbollah or Israel? Who is the greater threat to peace in Egypt? The Muslim Brotherhood or Israel? Do you understand? In every case, everyone in this room would acknowledge that ISIS is a greater threat to peace in Syria than Israel. In every person in this room, I have to believe, even Professor Schlein, would have to agree that ISIS is a greater threat, that the Muslim Brotherhood is a greater threat, and that Hezbollah is a greater threat. All of a sudden, we change the entire scenario because it is now Hamas instead of Hezbollah, or ISIS, or Muslim Brotherhood. Number 2, on this issue, just appealing to your common sense. In modern history, every war has been between a free state and a police state, or 2 police states. I cannot think of a 20th century example of any other. And the same holds true here. You have the police state of Hamas. If you differ with Hamas, they kill you. Where in the world other than Israel does anyone ever argue that the free state doesn't want peace and the police state wants peace? There is no other example on earth. There is no other example on earth of a country targeted for extinction. None. 220 some odd countries in this world. Only Israel is targeted for extinction. And we have a debate on whether the state targeted for extinction is the barrier to peace. That is quite a leap of faith. In the age of beheadings, as you have tragically experienced here in the UK, we have a debate. Hamas is a kindred spirit to ISIS and Hezbollah and Boko Haram. What do you think, they're an exception? All of those are monstrous. But Hamas, they're a terrific bunch who really want peace. If it only weren't for settlements, There were no settlements prior to 1967. Why wasn't there peace? Israel would dismantle the settlements for real peace in a moment because the Israeli people are much more interested in sending their kids to college and in having a peaceful life and in making a good living and inventing more medical and technological devices than they are in fighting wars. This would be the first free state in history to prefer war to peace. It is highly, highly unlikely. The Hamas covenant, which you heard from Adam earlier, the Hamas covenant, it says Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. If I could have extra time, over 8 minutes, I would take your question, but I have too much to get through. The Islamic resistance movement is a distinguished Palestinian movement whose allegiance is to Allah and whose way of life is Islam. It strives to raise the banner of Allah over every inch of Palestine. Yale University is a distinguished
I want to repeat that just so you hear what he said.
Palestinian movement whose allegiance is to Allah and whose way of life is Islam. It strives to raise the banner of Allah over every inch of Palestine. Yale University translation. I'm sure they didn't use inch in the original.
On that exact point.
So that is what Hamas is devoted to. Now, yes, I can. Oh, then please.
So all of the organizations that you're citing as a threat to peace just happen to be Arab and or Muslim. Could you explain to me why you think that might be the case, that you only view these organizations as threats to peace?
I don't. Okay. You obviously, those of you who applauded perceived the profundity of the question that I didn't. I don't quite understand. They are all a threat to peace. That is correct. Why did I only pick on Arab Muslim? I said Boko Haram. That is not Arab.
Arab and or Muslim.
Yes, Arab and or Muslim. That is correct. The only beheading groups in the world today, to the best of my knowledge, are Arab or Muslim.
Why do you think that is, in your estimation?
Why do I think that is? Sad to say, it was answered by Arab intellectuals at the United Nations, because the Arab world is a benighted place at this time. The status of women is particularly low. The Arab world translates fewer books in a year than in 10 years than Greece. The entire Arab world translates fewer books than Greece does in 1 year. There is no interest in the foreign world. It is a benighted world, the Arab world. It is a tragedy. This is not anti-Arab. If you love Arabs, you have to understand how low the moral level of the Arab world at this point is. And that has nothing to do with individual Arabs who may be saintly. But that is the dominant moral state. You are taught that you cannot judge civilizations as if Britain and Mali are on the same moral level. That is to give up on hope for humanity, to claim that there is no civilization that has produced something better than something else. So that is the tragic reason. They're not beheading people in Western civilization. They are in the Arab and Muslim worlds, and not the entire Muslim world. Now, why then? My second part is to answer the question, why is something so obvious that Israel wants peace and that Hamas wants to destroy Israel? Why is that debated at one of the most illustrious academic institutions on earth, Oxford? I have two answers. One is, there has been a broken moral compass in the intellectual world in the West for the last perhaps 80 or 100 years. I will give you an example. I studied at Columbia University at the School of International Affairs. I was taught by brilliant, and they were brilliant, professors that the United States and the Soviet Union were moral equivalents. It was capitalism versus communism, two economic theories, that's all. Neither was better than the other. You may not recall because you weren't born, many of you, but Ronald Reagan, the President of the United States, called the Soviet Union at one point an evil empire. He was lambasted. He was declared by Columbia and Harvard and Yale and Princeton and the New York Times a fool for having the temerity to make a moral statement about the Soviet Union, a place that had created the Gulag Archipelago and killed 40 million of its own people, not to mention a genocide in Ukraine. That is what I tell you, students. That's what has taken over in Western universities, a broken moral compass that truly calls evil good and good evil. I went through this, and I'm afraid many of you are going through this. This evening is one such example. And finally, the media. The media gives you a jaundiced view of the world. Gaza starts a war to kill as many Israelis as possible. And all you see on the BBC and Sky News, as we see in America on our TV, is dead Gazans. That's all you see. I shudder to think if in World War II the same media covered World War II, you would have seen far more dead German civilians than dead British civilians. But it takes a very, very frail moral mind to believe that you determine right and wrong by the number of dead. That's what we are told. Look at how many Gazans were killed and how few Israelis. Well, look at how few Brits were killed and how many more Germans were. Does that make the Germans right in World War II? That's the facile moral thinking that pervades our world. So I end with this, and that is, it would be a tragedy, in my opinion, if it came out, if it were known, the Oxford Union actually determined that Israel and not Hamas were the greater threat to peace. Outside of the world of academia, it is pretty clear. It's got to be clear here too. Thank you very much.
It's pretty hard to find anything to comment on with Dennis Prager. He is so well-spoken. Mike Rowe, I find a hard time commenting on Mike Rowe too. Both two very well-spoken individuals. I could just sit and listen to them all day long. So educated. It's a tragedy what happened to him. If you don't know, he fell somewhat recently and broke his back and maybe his neck to where he was paralyzed. He's only just now starting to recover. If you've seen any recent videos of him speaking, he's so much better. He's looking so much better than he was. But this is a relatively older video. I'm not sure how much older this is, but this at least a couple of years, quite a few years actually. All right, we're going to move on to another video that explains the difference between Israel and Islam, the false moral seesaw. And then we'll probably end it there for tonight.
That I find both important and fascinating. I speak of this apparently a universal perception that seems to see Islam and Israel as inextricably linked to one another. Honestly, wherever I look, people of every political and ideological stripe seem to see the two, Islam and Israel, as inseparable. More specifically, they see them through a rigid either-or framework. That is, they see them as mutually exclusive. If one is good, the other must be bad. If one is bad, the other must be good. Interesting logic, no? I bring this up because as Israel comes under increasing criticism, so too does the old construct morph into its antithesis. Consider, for decades, the logic was that if Islam is bad, then Israel must be good. But now, as criticism of Israel continues to mount, the logic has inverted. Now, if Israel is bad, then Islam must be good. This is, to be blunt, perverse reasoning. Consider what it implies.
Yeah, and this gets to the heart of why we're watching this video is, for whatever reason, there are those who think Israel is bad and Islam is good. And I think it's the same mentality. It's the same thing that convinces these people who, like in Minnesota, despite not the ones that are paid to be there. I mean, I guess if you're being paid to do it too, to some degree, you've got to agree with this stuff. But it causes people to defend evil. And that's kind of the heart of the issue here. And that's the heart of what we're learning about this. The serpent, the enemy, is this evil that would sooner kill you than love you as your neighbor.
The actions of a tiny Jewish state are supposed to somehow define the religion of nearly 2 billion Muslims around the world. Look, whatever one thinks of Israel, Islam has historically been, and in many ways continues to be, the West's most persistent adversary. I have documented this extensively in my books, From Sword and Scimitar, which looks at the historic Muslim conquests of Christendom, to Crucified Again, which looks at today's Muslim persecution of Christians. The facts speak for themselves. From its very origins in the 7th century, Islam emerged as a militant faith that expanded through violent conquest, primarily against surrounding Christians. Thus, what we nowadays call the heart of the Muslim world, that is the Middle East and North Africa, from Iraq in the east to Morocco in the west, was in fact once the heart of the Christian world. Islam conquered it all, and for centuries thereafter repeatedly pummeled the last bastion of Christendom, also known as Europe. Almost 1,000 years after conquering Christian Spain in the year 711, Muslims were surrounding Vienna in 1683. Indeed, the United States' very first war as a nation, the First Barbary War in 1801, was against Muslims who were raiding American vessels and enslaving their sailors. When Thomas Jefferson asked Barbary's envoy, one Abdul Rahman, why his countrymen were terrorizing Americans, the ambassador answered us, Jefferson wrote to Congress, that, quote, it was founded on the laws of their prophet, that it was written in their Quran, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them, non-Muslims, wherever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could. Now here's the thing. Israel did not even exist during any of this time, during these more than 1,000 years of jihads on Christendom. Therefore, Israel's 77 years of existence and its policies, whether one supports or condemns them, tell us absolutely nothing about Islam's past or present relationship with the West. In short, criticism of Israel does not equate exoneration of Islam. This is a false and dangerous dichotomy. To prove this once and for all, consider the figure of Hilaire Belloc, a prominent European intellectual who lived from between 1870 and 1953. I've often quoted him for his remarkably insightful views on Islam. For example, in 1938, a decade before Israel came into being, and when the Islamic world was at its weakest vis-a-vis the West, he wrote, quote, millions of modern people of the white civilization, that is, the civilization of Europe and America, have forgotten all about Islam. They have never come in contact with it. They take for granted that it is decaying, and that anyway, it is just a foreign religion, which will not concern them. It is, as a fact, the most formidable and persistent enemy which our civilization has had, and may at any moment become as large a menace in the future as it has been in the past. This is from his book, The Great Heresies. Now, by today's logic and standards, not least this syllogistic seesaw I just mentioned between Islam and Israel, Belloc's strong criticism of Islam would immediately be taken as ipso facto support for Israel. Yet Belloc was apparently not overly fond of Jews either. In 1922, he published a book titled The Jews, which, according to many, classify him as an anti-Semite. My point in telling you all this is that Belloc is proof that just because a person presents Islam as the West's most formidable and persistent enemy, to use his own words, does not mean that they are doing so simply to defend Israel, as the charge nowadays goes, for the two are not connected. To reiterate, criticism of Israel should not morph into an assumption that Islam, which is practiced by 2 billion people all around the world, is inherently virtuous. These are separate issues. The Israeli-Palestinian...
You know what's interesting about that number is it happens to be 1/4 of the planet. Where have we read about 1/4 of the planet ceasing to exist? I don't know if it's which way that goes. It's just an interesting number to take note of.
Palestinian conflict is localized and tells us very little about Islam at large. For example, millions of Muslim migrants are causing havoc throughout Europe. And Islamic jihadist organizations, with ISIS being just the tip of the iceberg, are terrorizing infidels throughout Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, including Israel itself. So is the existence of the Jewish state and its policies really necessary to explain Islamic behavior and phenomena that has existed since the dawn of Islam 14 centuries ago? I think not.
There you go. Yep.
But a hard, fast strike.
Let's see. A massive systematic attack is about to happen in Iran. You know, that is relevant. We're only at about a little after 2 hours. Let's listen to a little bit of this too.
Against the top of the regime, the head of the snake, to try everything possible to take him out, his inner circle out, and to hit some of the main sites where the drones are being hidden, where a lot is known about them, and where these...
It is shaping up. It's starting to look like whatever's going to happen in Iran is probably the spark that lights the fuse. Or it could even be, the fuse finally reaches the exploding, the ordnance, and explodes with whatever's going to happen in Iran. Because right now, Iran's horrendous. I mean, they're killing tens of thousands of people, and Trump outright told him not to. So he's planning something. And the fact that we're 2 weeks away from February 17th, when judgment is poured out, you just see all of these things coming together. Kind of makes you wonder. Makes you wonder what's going to happen, how to prepare.
These other military sites are, where a lot is known about them. A massive, systemic attack is what's needed.
The time is now. You will hear Mark Levin on fire. How we have a watershed moment to topple the Iranian regime now. Because if not now, then when?
I think Iran is turning into North Korea. The North Korea of the Middle East, and this is a huge problem. Huge problem.
I wonder if that could be the Great Tribulation. Is the Great Tribulation when a quarter of the world is killed? Could it be that that's the judgment being poured out?
Now, what do I mean by...
I don't know. My expectation, based on what's happening in, Europe and around the world, and we know that there's been invasions into our country from Islamists and Muslims. I'm preparing for far worse. That's our preparations. But it would be nice if it was just judgment being poured out.
That it exists for the sole purpose of funding the regime. It's a police state that uses police forces, internal security, and its military to stay in power and to control its people. So they have death camps, torture prisons, murder people at will, and it's getting worse and worse and worse by the day. The fact that the media are absent for the most part. They have ignored the urgency of the moment. The immediacy of the moment doesn't mean it's not happening, and it is happening. And unfortunately, people seem to be getting used to it. Not there, but outside of there. And I'm here to tell you, I'm never going to get used to this. Those people are suffering from a complete lack of civil liberties, a destitute economy, and a nearly non-existent middle class. It used to have a very vibrant middle class. Not anymore. The regime controls all aspects of the culture, communication, even whether the lights are turned off or on throughout the country, just like North Korea. And it is turning into a countrywide concentration camp, just like North Korea. Now, if we don't act, and by that I mean not diplomacy, but decisively, quickly, and overwhelmingly, with our military, against the top of the regime, Khomeini and his cohorts in that circle, Iran will in fact build nuclear weapons, as North Korea has, despite dozens of agreements over the decades with Republican and Democrat presidents in which they pledged not to. And to be crystal clear, any regime that is willing to slaughter its own people by tens of thousands, as Iran is doing, and they would kill 250,000 if they have to, or 1 million of their people if they have to, they will not hesitate to launch ICBMs with nuclear warheads against our cities. And they are on the brink of perfecting that technology, which I'll get to in a moment. It's time that we...
Yeah, see, this is what worries me. So Fury says that quarter is the fourth seal, which it looks like we're getting ready to come out of the fourth seal. I could be wrong. I mean, like, if this isn't based on a pattern, we could still be in the fourth seal, and what's about to happen in Iran could be part of seal number 4. But this is something that I still hold to, is the amount of death that has happened in this period of time. Basically since October 7, 2023. Actually, even from back here, I don't think we're going to truly know the number of death, the number that have died as a result of these things, probably until we're in heaven, or until after the fact. I just don't think we have, because there's countries we can't even go into to get an account of their dead, and I know our government is not reporting numbers properly, just based on what the morticians are saying, and even emergency rooms prior to Trump taking the drug epidemic so seriously. They had 10 people a day dying just from fentanyl overdoses, per emergency room. So like the numbers, it could be that a quarter have passed away. But yeah, I found it interesting that Muslims or Islam account for a quarter of the population on the planet.
Understand in the West the mindset of the Islamists. It is a different mindset. It is a culture of death. Their intentions, and they repeat them openly, to take us out, to take out the West. That's why they exist, for their own power, and to exercise that power and project it to destroy the West. They believe it's Allah's calling. They believe they're required to do it. Iran is weaker now than ever, and it will never be this weak again. Never. The opportunity to protect our own domestic national security interests, our own cities, our own way of life.
I'll tell you, it'll be very interesting if something happens to where they say peace and safety right around February 17th, and then something doesn't kick off.
To eliminate an enemy that is providing support to dangerous adversaries with imperial intentions, Russia, drones, China, oil, and so forth, and crucially, to stop the mass genocide of the Iranian people, who are a good people, who are an educated people, who are a Western people, who will be our friends and allies, who simply want freedom. If we don't do this right now, it's not going to get done. This is peace through strength. Now, I want to remind you that when North Korea, decades ago, was trying to build nuclear weapons, one president after another, one secretary of state after another, one envoy after another, the UN, security councils, general assemblies, year after year after year, they made deals with North Korea. They gave North Korea money. They threatened North Korea. I wrote down the timeline for North Korea getting nuclear weapons. 1985, 1991, 1992, all negotiations with us, with Europe, with the UN, with all kinds of individuals and organizations. But we were intimately involved. 1994, 1995, 1999, desperately seeking a deal. And we got deals. And they broke them each and every time. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2005, 2006, agreement after agreement, deal after deal, money sent to them. Appeasing is what it was. In October 2006, their first nuclear weapon tested successfully. Then we keep negotiating with them to control what they've created. 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, negotiations, deals, sub-deals, counter deals, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2016, that whole period, negotiations stalled. 2017, now they have a hydrogen bomb.
Really?
A hydrogen bomb. Nuclear, now hydrogen. 2019, North Korea ends all negotiations with all countries and all entities related to its hydrogen bombs and its nuclear weapons. which it got through deals, through arrangements, through subsidies, through appeasement. 2022, they ramped up their missile tests. 2026, they have estimated 50 nuclear and hydrogen missiles, and they add 6 to 7 every single year. And now they're helping the Iranians, as are the communist Chinese. So you have a limited period here. And Iran right now is on its back. It's weaker than it's ever been. And recent reports indicate their economy has reached a state of near total collapse right now. Now, what do I mean by that? Currency collapse. The Iranian rial has plummeted to historic lows. Historic lows. 1.1 million rials to $1 US. You know, that's where you're pushing around paper money in wheelbarrows. Remember those black and white movies of the Weimar Republic? In late 2025, it was losing value so rapidly that shop owners were unable to set stable prices. Hyperinflation. Inflation rate overall is 43% right now. Food prices have surged at an annual rate of 72%. Basic staples like bread have seen price increases of over 113%. Meat has become a luxury item, unaffordable for tens of millions of people there, of the 90 million population. 1 in 5 young people is unemployed. Official reports suggest 57% of Iranians are suffering from some level of malnutrition. This was a society and a culture that was vigorous, that was vibrant. Not anymore. The economy shrank 2.8%. Unemployment rate overall is 41%. The banking sector is in crisis. A major bank recently collapsed under bad loans to regime cronies, and ATMs have frequently gone offline. Severe energy and water crises cause daily nationwide power outages for 3 to 4 hours. There's a chronic water shortage. Intense sanctions from the U.S. and Europe, alongside the aftermath of Israel's 12-day war with Iran, crippled oil exports and nuclear infrastructure, but they're rebuilding at a breakneck speed. Now, what should we do about this? We can negotiate like we did with North Korea for 30 years. Where does it get us? Look, folks, the foreign minister of Iran said, yeah, you knocked out our nuclear sites, but you can't knock out our knowledge, and we're going to build our nuclear weapons. And so maybe they'll make an agreement and say, no, we won't, but they will. Maybe they'll sign an agreement and say, okay, no more ballistic missiles, but they will. They're terrorists. It's an Islamist terrorist regime. They don't care about human life of their own people. Why are they going to care about a piece of paper? Oh, yeah, we signed a piece of paper with the West. Well, what does that mean? Yeah. It means nothing. Nothing. It's a great piece in the Chicago Council on Global Affairs by Saeed Golkar. And he writes in part, the protests are a direct challenge to the foundation of regime legitimacy. Protest slogans no longer call for reform or accountability within the system. They reject the system itself. The state's response, killing thousands of people in just 2 weeks, reflects leadership's panic. The response has been one of mass repression, not crowd control, repression. A regime confident in its authority does not resort to killing its citizens on this scale. Such violence signals fear of collapse, not strength. Protest slogans no longer call for reform or accountability within the system. They reject the system itself. What is happening in Iran is...
So this is all why a U.S. strike on Iran would not lead to war. I don't know. I hope it doesn't, but, you know, based on the timeline, and Iran, I think, has got, don't they have Russia and China who has signed on to back them? Yeah. I don't know. I'm inclined to believe that I think that they would, it's such a setup for when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction. It seems like we're on the precipice of that.
Is not merely a domestic human rights catastrophe. It carries strategic consequences that extend far beyond the nation's borders. If President Trump were to authorize a targeted U.S. military strike, and he has threatened to do, it would not trigger a regional war, but instead expose how weak and constrained the Islamic Republic has become. For years, U.S. policymakers have treated Iran as a powerful and resilient regional actor, a perception that has become increasingly outdated. Today's Islamic Republic is a regime under siege from its own society, surviving through coercion rather than consent. Its economy continues to deteriorate, and ruling elites are deeply concerned about the prospect of being overthrown by the Iranian population. But they won't be overthrown by the Iranian population because they're not armed. They're not armed. And so they murder them. They just murder them. The mass killing of protesters.
That is one thing that is definitely different in the United States is there's a lot of us here that are armed. Thank God for that.
Protesters confirms that the regime views its own citizens as a primary threat. Fears that a U.S. strike would provoke Iranian retaliation misunderstand the regime's strategic reality. Iran is in no position to escalate militarily. Opening an external conflict amid sustained nationwide unrest would be extraordinarily risky, and any serious retaliation against the United States would invite an overwhelming military response at a moment when the Islamic Republic's coercive apparatus is already consumed by internal security demands. Time after time, Iran has prioritized regime survival over escalation, revealing strategic weakness beneath its defiant rhetoric. And today's regime is far more vulnerable than it was in 2020 and even last year. The ongoing protest wave has absorbed the attention and resources of the IRGC and the Basij, the Inner Circle, whose primary mission is now domestic control. Retaliation against the United States would be reckless and unlikely, as the Islamic Republic lacks both the operational capacity and the political confidence to respond forcefully. Time after time, Iran has prioritized regime survival over escalation, revealing strategic weakness beneath its defiant rhetoric. I'm not downplaying the danger. They talk about these drones, and they'd have a surge of drones and so forth and so on. And there are ways to deal with that.
All right, I can see where he's going. I think we've seen enough for tonight. We're at about 2.5 hours. Do you guys have anything that you want to talk about before we call it a night? So, yeah, just call me watchful. It's what I prefer. Yeah. So, Mark of the Beasts could be the Bismillah. In the name of Allah. It seems, with what's going on in the world right now, the rise of Islam, the rise of Muslim neighborhoods, rabats around the world, all signs seem to be pointing to a rise of Islam in the end time. And I think it makes sense. You've got the seals. The first seal, the colors of the seals are the colors of Islam. The rider on the white horse, rider on the red horse, rider on the black horse, rider on the green horse. Those are the colors of Islam. And then you've got the mark of the beast. One of the interpretations could be in the name of Allah. And then right now, seal number 2, the Biden administration just completely tore down the borders and let anybody who wanted to come in to our country come in. They allowed us to be invaded. I don't think we realize what they did. We're not going to I don't think we're going to realize the consequence of that until, the Great Tribulation. I think we'll realize the consequence of it whenever the Great Tribulation starts. I'm skeptical that there is a serpent in the grass in the United States, so to speak. And I think that now that we're aware of it, we can be prepared for that attack. I'm reminded of Matthew 24, I think it's 43. For if the good man of the house had known in what hour the thief would come, he would have watched. That's why we've changed our attention this week to learning about the serpent, learning about the enemy, so that we can be prepared, so that we can, know what hour to watch. It's looking more and more Like things are, it's interesting because there's conflicting information. On one hand, you got Mark Levin here about why attacking Iran wouldn't spark a world war. But at the same time, when you start to look at Islam and their beliefs and their religion, the very nature of their belief is conquest and to conquer. And what better time for them to initiate that than when Iran looks its weakest. So we'll continue to learn about this week. If there's any videos that you want me to review for information, or any videos that you want me to play during the show and comment on, by all means, send them to twowitnesseslive@gmail.com. I'll get those and review them. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep looking for more information to continue learning about Islam. One thing that I'm curious to learn about is the 7 mountains and Mecca. And because I up till this point, I thought the harlot on the 7 mountains was Rome because of the 7 mountains in Italy. But there's 7 mountains in Saudi Arabia at Mecca. So, all right. Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. I think we're probably good for the evening. I see, there's several of you in the comments who know a lot about this. By all means, feel free to correct me if I say something that's incorrect. I'm learning about this myself. This is one of the areas that I don't know a whole lot about. Just tidbits here and there that I've studied throughout the years. Not thoroughly versed in history. Oh, the other thing that I'd like to learn about is, Fury has mentioned that Islam is a good candidate for the beast that was, is, and will be. I misquoted that, but you know what I'm talking about in Revelation. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. If you guys like this kind of content, hit that like button, subscribe to subscribe to our channel so you get notifications, and visit us here Monday through Friday at 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern time. If you like to catch the live show, I'll be cutting out some segments tonight to repost for tomorrow. If that's what you prefer, the shorter, smaller segments. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God bless and shalom.